All right, so again, this is a workshop on procrastination. And I'm going to start by, um, by sharing, sort of some ideas about sort of parts inside of you, parts of yourself that may be leading to the procrastination. So first, and think inside whether this fits for you. Is there a part of you that is sort of ambitious, that wants you to succeed, wants you to do well, maybe pushes you to get your work done, expects you to do very well on tasks, in life, etc. Again, this is a good part of you that has probably helped you achieve what you have achieved, helped you get your stuff done, pushes you to get your stuff done. And so there's a lot of very good about it. Again, this is a part of you that is ambitious and wants you to succeed. So there is a good part of it, but it has sort of a negative side sometimes. Sometimes it can have really high expectations sometimes. Sometimes it can expect us to work nonstop or get everything done all at once, maybe beyond our ability to get it done. And sometimes it can be kind of harsh with us if we don't meet that standard. It can kind of beat us up if we're not meeting its expectations. So think about whether that fits for you, okay? And if anybody wants to ask a question or share how that's true for them or not true for them or how it's different for them, feel free to unmute and you can share that. And I'll stop talking if somebody unmutes and starts speaking. So now let me know if this resonates for you. Is there another part of you? For some of you, it might be a smaller part of you that is kind of sick and tired of all the pressure, that really would like to, not do the work, basically. I mean, when you're really, really stressed and burnt out, what it wants is to have time stop and you could move to like some desert or beautiful place, desert island or whatever, where you would have no responsibilities, nothing that you need to do for several months. So there might be, so this is a different part of you that really wants you to take a break. So there's good in this part as well. This part wants you to be happy as well as successful. Doesn't want you to just be successful, but also wants you to be happy. Wants to take care of you. Wants you to be able to relax and enjoy rather than just succeed and produce and achieve, right? So do people relate to having both of those sides in you? Okay. Again, unmute if you'd like to speak. Okay, got a thumbs up. I'll take it. So both of these sides are essential parts of you. You can't get rid of either one, even though we might want to. Usually want to get rid of the side that wants to go to a desert island. Sometimes we want to get rid of that side. So what the problem really comes from the fact that these two sides hate each other. Each thinks that the other one is ruining everything, right? So what happens is so you can only occupy or be in one of these sides at a time. So what'll happen is that, you'll be in one, and in that one, it hates the other side. So you can't have any of the other. And that's true for both of them, right? So, and what'll happen is, you'll start very often, like you have a chunk of time to get some stuff done. And the ambitious side will say, oh, we're gonna put our nose to the grindstone, and we're gonna get a lot done in this period of time. And you better, don't you realize what you've got to do? You've got to do this, 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 right? And you're gonna work the whole time. You're not gonna look at email or anything like that, or Instagram or whatever. And so you sit down to work, and after making that list and that expectation, that almost causes you to go, oh my God, oh, that sounds awful. Let me just look at this one post first, and then I'll get to that. And of course, many of you have experienced, especially if you're here, that it's 2 hours later, and you're still, one post is read to another, or let me just watch one episode or whatever, right? And you end up doing nothing. And so what's happened is you've been in the ambitious side at first, and that almost causes you to go to the other side. The extreme of the ambitious side causes you to go to what I'll call the self-care side. And it's not like one's good and one's bad. They're both good and they're both bad in a way. And then after those few hours, what happens? You swing back like, oh man, look what you've done. Now you've really got to get to work. Now you're really behind. You better da 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 da. And you just end up swinging back and forth. And you're pretty much miserable all the time, because either you're beating yourself up, or you're looking at posts or watching episodes while still, sort of beating yourself in the back of your mind. You're saying, oh my God, you're totally blowing it, right? So that you're not getting any work done. You're feeling worse and worse about yourself, right? Because of this swinging back and forth. And some of what we have to do is try to bring you up as a negotiator between these two sides. You're going to have to partially satisfy and partially dissatisfy both of them. Okay? And in doing so, each of them have to learn a thing or two. So the ambitious side needs to learn, in essence, to state it in the most extreme fashion, it needs to learn that if it expects everything, it gets nothing. If it expects less, it gets something. Now, as I'm saying this, I would guess that perhaps the ambitious side is saying, what the heck are you talking about? Don't you know everything we have to do? Don't you know what major I am or what I need to get done, right? It's saying, don't you dare, right? It's getting pissed off. But the truth is, again, when you're in the procrastination cycle, especially if you've gotten burnt out, that it ends up being a true thing that it needs to learn. And it won't believe it until it starts seeing it. So expect it to be upset as we try out this strategy. So again, it needs to learn that if it expects everything, it gets nothing. If it expects less, it gets something. Okay, that's something it's going to learn. It's not going to believe it until it sees it. So the other side needs to learn first that it's going to do some work, and work is going to come first. Now, again, of course, when I say that, it's going, oh my God, especially if you're really in that side at this moment, it's going to be saying, oh God, that sounds awful. I have to get to work. You know, that's what I don't want to do. But it's going to do work, and it's going to do work first. But with this method, what it'll learn is to trust you that getting to work does not mean signing up to following the ambitious side, everything that it says you must do. That it's not signing up to necessarily follow its goals and its objectives. Right? The other thing that it'll learn is that watching an episode on Netflix is more fun if you do some work first. Okay? So, you know, that's in the negotiation. Those are things that each of them are going to learn. So at any point, is anyone feeling like they want to speak up or have questions about everything I've shared so far, or share their own experience, or bring up a yeah, but?
I have a question about I guess what you're talking about. So
Sure.
sometimes, like, just before I go on this call, I'll be doing one thing and I won't necessarily get distracted on like going on my phone or something, but I'll get distracted on looking at something else for work. Like I'll get something else. So how do I avoid, and then I get deep involved with that. So how do I avoid that from happening?
Well, so I think that, you know, this will get into a little bit of the stuff that we're going to cover. But, you know, sometimes sometimes you might be heading towards something that's easier, right? Is it often something easier?
Sometimes. I think it depends.
Okay.
It depends on the situation.
Yeah. So it you know, is it usually something that you kind of want to do more, at least at that moment?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah. So in a sense, and you'll hear more about rewards later, but the idea is I would use that as reward. What's basically happening is the task you're on is starting to slow down. It's starting to flow less. And that's making it, you know, and so when you're pushing, it takes more energy to push yourself to do something when it's not flowing. And that's what a lot of this approach is about. So what you might do is set some small goal of a little bit more on that you're going to do, and then you're going to reward yourself by switching. Right?
Yeah, okay, I get what you mean.
Because, you know, now again, if you're switching to something that's due in 3 weeks from something that's due at 2 p.m., you know, that day, then you've got a little less of an argument. But if there's not some real urgency to it, getting anything done and being able to use work as a reward means getting more work done. And what matters, the idea behind this approach is to try and work when you're flowing and not work when you're not flowing. You know, but we'll get to that a little bit. So that's a great question.
Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else? Any other questions or? So switching is not always a negative thing, but you want to be intentional about it. You know. So the best way to really illustrate this, and hopefully, you know, this will, you know, elicit some more responses, is actually to go through a negotiation, okay? Now again, given this is going to piss off the ambitious side a little bit, okay? Just forewarning a little bit. Think about the next chunk of time that you have to get some work done, okay? Maybe it's after this Zoom meeting, maybe it's this evening, maybe you're totally full, you don't have time to do any studying today, and it's sometime tomorrow, maybe it's tomorrow morning, whatever, right? So think about that chunk of time, okay? Now, what I'd like you to do is ask the ambitious side of you, how much does it want you to get done in that period of time? And you can either share that, or if you want to write it down, you know, if you have pen and paper there, or just make a mental list. All right. I'll give folks a few moments to think that through or write it down. Again, this is the ambitious side of you, the side that wants you to get everything done perfectly on time. Sorry, I'm going to put this to voicemail. Let's see. I'm forgetting how I do that. I haven't been in the office in a while. It'll stop. Okay, good. Oh, okay, great. Something in the chat here. Since you mentioned urgency, I was wondering if you could talk about how to negotiate with the ambitious side when you're planning out long-term goals that require prioritizing small steps towards success when they aren't so immediately urgent. That's a great, I'm sorry, you sent that privately. I hope it was okay that I shared it, but that'll be helpful for recording. So yeah, we can speak to that to some degree. Let me cover that and remind me if I don't hit it later, okay? Because I think that'll come up as we talk further. So you've got the next 4 hours, or you've got your next chunk. You've made a list for it. Now, I want you to imagine whatever, you know, whether it's after this call or tomorrow, whatever, this evening, and you're heading to your workspace to do that, to turn on your computer to do that list. How does it feel? What does that feel like? So, anybody willing to share?
Maybe overwhelming.
Yeah. So I think that is a little bit of the self-care side going, oh God, right? And so remember that feeling. Now, think of that same time, and we're going to ask the self-care side, how much would it be willing to do if you were going to give it a reward afterwards? Now, as soon as I say this, I expect the ambitious side to say again, we don't, you know, what are you talking about? You know, we can't ask that side, you know, it's going to be screaming. But just run this experiment with me. So what would the self-care side say? Let's get this done, and then, so you can either share or write it down or make the list in your mind. So raise your hand or give me some notification if basically the ambitious side has got the self-care side with its arm behind its back saying, you better not put too little. Yeah. Yeah. So what if we were going to put it like this? You know, so again, we're just going to let the ambitious side scream for a little bit. We're just going to put them in a separate room. Okay. What amount would the self-care side say, oh, I only have to do that? I wish this call would end right now so I could go do it and get it done. What would that amount be? Now again, we know that the ambitious side's going to be screaming, right? Did the list change a little bit? So now I'd like you to think about that list and tell me to slow down if I'm going too fast, but think about heading to your workspace and you're going to do that list. How does it feel? Does it feel different? Again, anyone want to share?
It feels less stressful.
Yeah, yeah. So that feeling is the feeling we're going for. That feeling, see, the ambitious side creates, and this is, so at the beginning of the semester, right, you may not be in a ton of pressure. Okay, yeah, someone has to go, but that's okay. At the beginning of the semester, there's less pressure, right? And you may not be totally burnt out yet. So this is most useful when you're burnt out, right? Or when you're failing to get any work done because you keep procrastinating, right? So that feeling, so all right, let me go back. So the ambitious side creates mission impossible, failure certain, punishment severe, right? So we have to get away from that and create mission possible, success certain, you know, reward coming, right? Especially when you're burnt out, especially if you keep doing nothing, right? So if, you know, like if we think about this chunk of time, this next chunk, if we think realistically, you know, the ambitious side is saying, no, we have to go for everything, right? But if we think realistically, it thinks that, so the realistic choice is really between a smaller goal and nothing. If you're really in that cycle of procrastination. Now you don't need this if you're working and you're getting your work done, and maybe you're blowing it off a little bit or not reaching your goals totally, but you're mainly being productive. But if you're in that cycle of procrastination, the real choice is between getting something done and getting nothing done. And this approach will help you break through to get that something done. And it really doesn't matter how much that something is, because the main thing is to get started. And we have to make it small enough so that it becomes, you know, mission possible, success certain, reward coming, right? And we need that feeling of, I can work, I can do that. That's the feeling that we want to get. It's the feeling that matters most. And whatever amount of work will get that feeling, that's the amount we have to do. Because right now, your self-care side, which is the one who's really shutting everything down, believes that if that you're only that getting to work means, working for hours and hours and hours, trying to, climb Mount Everest, basically. And once it starts to believe that that getting to work means getting done what you said you would, then it'll start agreeing to work. Again, at first, the ambitious side's going to be screaming, but it'll stop screaming after a while because it'll see, oh, I've been in this procrastination loop for 2 weeks and not getting anything done. And now we're starting to get done. Not as much as I would like, but I can see that this is working. So it'll stop screaming so loud. Right? Is this making sense? So, okay, cool. And let me know if you have questions, just chime in. So I have a question. So you have this smaller goal. Does everybody have their smaller goal, right? For this next chunk? Ambitious side screaming about it. But if you've been in a cycle of doing nothing, this is icing if you get it done. This is better than you would if you hadn't come here today. So you have this smaller goal. What does it mean if during your next chunk of time that you've planned this for, you don't do anything? You just watch Netflix. What does it mean? Anybody want to answer? Try and answer.
You got nothing done.
Yeah. It definitely means that. But what else? Anything else? What else does it mean?
It means that the goal you set was too difficult.
Exactly. It means you have to make it smaller. Right? So, and I know that almost makes the ambitious side even crazier, right? So if you're looking at your small goal and you're feeling any tiredness and none of the, oh, only that? I wish I could do it right now. Then that might happen. And if it does, your next chunk, you have to make it smaller, right? And again, I have worked with like 10th year doctoral students who haven't touched their dissertation in 3 years. And this got them started and they graduated. So for them, I have made goals so small, you can always make it smaller. I have had people that what they're going to do tonight is they're going to get the book out and open it to the page that they will start reading tomorrow. And then they go home, they get right into bed and go to sleep or watch movies the rest of the evening. Again, that was people who were super, super stuck. Okay. So any questions, reactions to this so far? Okay. So the next thing we can talk about goes to a little bit to a question that Sarah asked. Negotiating with the ambitious side when you're planning out long-term goals. So I think, it's what matters most in this approach is when you're translating the long-term goals to the next chunk of time. It's about how you feel as you're sitting down to do the work. another way to use this in long-term planning is if you're looking at the plan and it just makes you tired and makes you just want to avoid the next work period, then I would make it less ambitious, you know, or at least the next piece, right? Now, another thing that'll happen early on in the semester, this can also be used to get yourself starting early on stuff, you know, that normally you would blow off because you have so much time, right? This may speak a little bit to what you're saying, Sarah, or asking about. Is that, like, let's say you have nothing to do for 2 weeks. And what you might normally do is just, you know, not do any work on it until, you know, at least a week from now. So again, if we take it that anything you do this week is gravy, right? It doesn't really matter how low you set the goal. Because right now you don't have high motivation to get something done because you don't have to. So, but what you do is you take each chunk and you do a little bit first, you know? So you set some small goal. And again, anything you get done is gravy. So it doesn't matter how small it is because it's all compared to 0, right? And then you give yourself something nice like watch shows. So let's say if you even say, like, if you don't have anything due, you know, you're only going to do 5 minutes of reading, right? But that's 5 minutes you wouldn't do today, let alone in the next week. And you've added up, and it might be 10 the next day, and you add it up. Now, again, I know assignments are much bigger than that. But, you know, this is all compared to nothing, getting nothing done. So I don't know, did that speak a little bit to what you were asking, Sarah? You can either chat in or speak.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, sure. So what I usually do at this point is work with somebody on specifically their plan for the next chunk. Is anybody willing to do that?
I guess I still have to plan specifically out what I want to do, but like I have a general idea of what I want to get done. I mean, do you want like specific assignment? How do you want me to put this?
Well, yeah, you can say, you don't have to go into too much detail about it, but when is your next chunk of time that you have available?
I was planning on doing it. Well, I started it right before I got on this call, so I plan on continuing after the call's over.
Okay, how much time do you have after? It's like before dinner, or?
Yeah, I was gonna go till dinner.
Okay.
My chunk.
So you know, like 5-ish till
probably 6:45.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
5. Yeah. So you have an hour and 45 minutes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So again, can you think of what the ambitious side would want you to get done?
Yeah, just the whole entire time.
Yeah.
Not looking over the phone or anything.
Yeah. So imagine we're hanging up here. You're saying leave meeting. How do you feel?
I mean, I feel, I guess, motivated, but like I have an hour 45. I have time. Let me get to it and start.
So you're really in the ambitious side. You can feel that, right? You don't feel any of the self-care side.
Not really.
Any of the tiredness, right? So if you don't need to change a thing for 5 to 6:45 if when you really get off this call, you still feel that way and you still behave that way, and that you do not turn on Netflix or look at Snapchat or whatever, right? right? And you work away, you know, and you're feeling good and you're flowing, right? Then there's nothing we need to change, right? But if you sort of start, you get off this meeting and you find yourself, you're dawdling around, you're avoiding it basically, or if you sit down to work and it's not flowing, right? Then I think you need to change the plan.
Yeah.
Right. So is there an easier task you could switch to, or, lower the time that you're going to work and give yourself a reward before dinner? And I know you're not really feeling that, so it might be hard to do that right now.
Yeah, no, I was pretty set on what I was gonna do because I'm trying to go in order.
Okay, sure,
Yeah.
that's fine. And again, if that works, you don't need this at that moment. This is really for when you're in that cycle and you're stuck, right? Because again, you're not about to procrastinate. But if that goal is way beyond what you can do in an hour and 45 minutes, and you're going to feel bad about it, that's leading to burnout. And again, it may be more than an hour and 45 minutes, and you may not feel bad about it. Then you're fine, right? But if you're setting up in any way, mission impossible, failure certain, punishment severe, that's heading towards burnout. Does this feel helpful?
Yeah. So just to kind of clarify on your point,
Yeah.
if I had like a really big assignment that I didn't want to do the whole thing, you're saying, try to pick a smaller task to do at that time.
So the way I think about this is hitting sort of, because it's not really true for most of you right now. I mean, maybe for some, but it's kind of rare at this point in the semester. But in that situation where you haven't started and you've got a 10-page paper by midnight, right? And it's, right? So that's the classic situation. Now, the way to think about that is you have a certain amount of work in you before midnight tonight. Let's say that's preordained, right? And this is another truth that you have to learn. If you ask for more than that, you will get significantly less or none of that. If you ask for about that or even a little lower, you will get significantly more than if you ask for more. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So if sitting there thinking, I have to get this done, and that just isn't in you, then you will get a lot less done. If you say, I am going to, I am so burnt out that I can work on this for an hour. Even though it's due at midnight, I'm gonna, turn in what I've got. That's all that's in me. Then you will get an hour's work done on it. If you say, I'm gonna try and get it done, you will be sending nothing to the professor, right? I know this is kind of crappy news, because what you want is my trick to make you be able to do 10 pages before midnight, right? And that just doesn't exist. Your choice is between to get what's in you done or to get nothing done. And if what's in you, chances are good that it's not 10 pages before midnight, right? Any sort of, or do you have anything back from that, or you that kind of gotcha?
No. That was helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Any responses to that, or anything else, or anybody else want to run through their next chunk? Anybody really struggling with procrastination right now and needs help getting started?
I'm not struggling, well, not as much as like I used to struggle with procrastination,
Mhm.
but I was wondering like, what would be your advice in like, I kind of feel that even though I don't have like, I'm not missing or I'm not late on any assignments, I feel like I'm still behind
Mhm.
in the sense like, I feel like there's other assignments I should be doing or like other quizzes or tests I should be studying for, but
Right, right.
you know.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the ambitious side, constantly feeling like I need to be doing more, right? Is that accurate?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm never doing enough. Now again, that has some positive things. It's motivating in a lot of ways. But if it's starting to make you not work, you know, then it's not helping. It's actually working against its purpose, right? So the one trick for that is to just, what do I need to do next, right? And what is going to flow next is the deeper question, right? And tell yourself, yeah, there's other things to do, and I'm going to focus on this because that's getting it done. So sort of get a mantra into your head of like, do what I'm doing now. And this speaks a little bit to what you were sharing earlier, Aaron, of kind of the focus thing. Like, if something's flowing, I'm going to do that one thing. Um, so try and just remind yourself, keep the list of what you're going to do. And if you're on that list, you can sort of say to that ambitious side, I know you're worried, and I am currently working. So that's towards the work pool. So things will get done. But I get that you're worried. We will get to those next things next. Does that speak a little bit to what you're saying, Alyssa?
yeah, thank
Okay,
you.
sure. So I've got a question in the chat. Is it okay if I read this out loud, Jacqueline? Okay, great. So I'm a grad student back in school for the first time in a few years, a lot of reading. Yes, I'm struggling with working smarter and harder. Do I skim? Do I read closely? When, where? I'm also struggling with having to do everything at home, where normally I was somebody who went to work in the library. Yeah, no, that sucks if your normal place is out of the home right now. So one thing with grad school is it takes a little while. I don't know if you're doctoral or master's, but it takes a little while to kind of get what's important to do, how much you have to learn, how deeply you have to read, et cetera, et cetera. But you will learn that in time. Especially at the doctoral level, you'll have enough time to learn it, but you'll get it after a semester or so, even in a master's program, learn what's important. But this is the period where your job now is to figure that out. And I know it really sucks to not have it figured out because we feel we don't have time to figure it out, but you will feel different next semester than you do now, and you will feel different next year than you did now. Each you'll get the lay of the land, and then also learning again how you work. So think back to how you worked as an undergrad or in your previous graduate program if this is not your first. Try and think back to, and again, you remembered that you're used to working out of the home, which again, there's nothing you can do about. But think about what caused you to flow, what caused you not to flow. Learning how you work is really important. Like for me, I used to, so I like to have big chunks of time, but what I've learned is I'm sharpest in the morning. And so I always work first in the morning. All I'm allowed to do is make tea and get to work. I don't even eat breakfast. I don't tend to eat breakfast anyway, but so I don't let myself get distracted by anything else. So I get right to work in the morning. But I also know that as soon as it stops flowing, I change to an easier task or I stop, and that's it for the day. And the truth is if you really work when you're flowing, you're going to get, like in 2 hours of flow work, you'll get 4 hours of non-flow work time done, right? I don't know, is this speaking a little bit to what you're asking about, Jacqueline? Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think until you figure this stuff out, it is a period of feeling like you're screwing up, not knowing enough, not doing enough, but that sort of passes. And are you familiar with the imposter syndrome? That everybody has the imposter syndrome, or at least almost everybody. And so at the beginning of a grad program, you will feel like they made a mistake, I snuck in, I don't deserve to be here. That is just part of it, because it's the same like a new job, maybe a little more higher stakes than that, depending on the job. But you always, the first year in a job is tough. It feels like crap because you're filled with, do I fit here? Do I like here? Do they like me? Am I good at this? Am I doing it right? How do things work here? What are the politics? You're full of that. Once you get into your second year and beyond, you have much more sense of it. So unfortunately, we don't get that message. So we think we should not feel that way. Or if we feel that way, it means we're screwed. No, if you feel that way, it means you're the first year somewhere. It's normal. So getting used to sort of tolerating that and knowing that it'll pass as you figure stuff out. Again, not a total answer to what you want, but I think it's helpful. And a lot of this is, again, I'm a therapist, so I'm thinking psychologically, this is what shuts us down. This is what makes us burnt out. This is what makes us not work and get stuck. Any other questions? Yes. Yeah, so Juan's question, and I hope it's okay if I say it. So the ambitious side tells us harsh criticism even after a realistic and smaller goal. How can we negotiate with it? Yes, I expect actually that it will get harsher, especially because it's a smaller goal, a realistic goal. Yeah, I expect that. So the ambitious side will get harsh, and it feels like it has to step up the game and really be meaner even, because you might try and go for something smaller. And it thinks that, if we give an inch to that self-care side, it'll take a mile and you'll end up homeless, right? That's what it thinks, but it's not true. So so a couple things I've done, especially if you're trying this out right at the beginning, is I've asked, okay, just tell the ambitious side that we're just going to try this for a few chunks of time, a few days, or maybe a week, and then we can go back. Just tell it, we're going to do what the crazy therapist man said for a couple days, and then we get to blow it off. If it, the ambitious side, this is going to totally explode. It's going to be horrible. It's going to ruin everything. Just say we're doing the crazy therapist man's experiment. And then, if I don't break through my stuckness, then we can go back. Okay. So that's the sort of the ultimate argument against, but basically I come back with it like, what have we been doing? We've asked for everything and we've got nothing. So we can do what you want again and ask for everything and we'll get nothing again. But at some point you're going to learn and you're going to let me try this. That's sort of my argument back. So the next question, I hope that meets your needs, Juan. So Sarah asked, and I hope it's okay that I read this. Can you talk more about negotiating productive procrastination versus neglecting self-care needs, thinking about the non-work chores that can become distractions or getting dragged out? So if you really love to clean or do the dishes or whatever, instead of starting the paper or doing another problem set or whatever, I would again, use this technique. If you really like, oh my God, you just can't take your eyes off the dirty sink full of dishes, I would set that up as a reward. All right, just do one problem and then you get to do the dishes. Or maybe even do a little bit of dishes and then another problem. Again, the normal thing is you would do the dishes and then clean the counters and then, you know, replace the cabinet liners or whatever, and you would get nothing done. So that one problem or that little problem set or writing that first paragraph or doing a free write is gravy over what would normally happen, right? So use the productive procrastination as a reward for getting one little bit done and just making it smaller if you need to in order to get started. I hope that helps with what you needed, Sarah. Any other questions or responses? All right. So I think there's an evaluation. Do you have that, Lydia? I don't know if Lydia.
Yeah, I can put it in the chat.
Okay, great. All right, thanks. So one thing that's helpful as we're trying this out is to get feedback. And again, let me know if this was useless for you, or let us know, or if it was helpful, or if you have suggestions for any changes. And we have a little time if anybody has another, and if you could, yeah, if you're willing, that'd be great if you could do this right after or when you get a chance soon, so you don't forget any feedback you have for us. But any last questions or concerns or situations?
Sometimes I feel like sometimes I work better at night, like I'm more productive at night.
Yeah.
So if it's really late, but I want to go to sleep, but I still have a significant amount of work to do, how do you think I would go about the decision, like in terms of, okay, I should just go to sleep now, I can get up early in the morning and do this, or do I do like, okay, let me just grind through this and try to just finish this now so I can go to sleep knowing that I got it done?
Well, I think, I think flow is something I would always consider. Like if I am just cooking, right? Then I could probably lose some sleep over it, right? But if I'm like slowing down, I'm sagging, I'm reading sentences over and over again, not able to focus, then you might as well sleep. Yeah, I hope that helps. Yeah.
Thank you.
So another question was, when you have more than one assignment due tomorrow or the next few days, how should you take them on? Great question. I mean, I think, there are a couple factors. One is like, a lot of calculus you probably already would think of, like, which one is going to make more of a grade differential and which class am I doing better in, blah, 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 blah. If there's a class that you're, you're on the edge of getting and, you can do better, blah, blah, blah. But also I think of which one am I going to flow on at this moment? Where, you want to, because you might flow on the next one the other time. Or if you're flowing on one and you're going to end up kind of half procrastinate work on the other, I would go with flow because I think that's more efficient. You're going to get the grade differentiation more from that one. And then you can, remaining time, you can plug away and do what you can on the other. Again, I think where the flow is going to be the best work, the greater pump for your GPA, the greater productivity, the greater feeling. So you get that done, you might feel good enough to be able to push through some grindy work, So those are the things that I consider. I hope that gets at a little bit of what you need, Alyssa. So I think we're about out of time, but it's been a pleasure speaking with you all. Again, feel free to bring more to the, a month from today, or go to the other academic sessions or any of the other ones. Again, we wish you all the best, and thank you so much. Take care.